Hello Earth signs Capricorn, Taurus and Virgo. Welcome to the Aquarius full moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising sign listed below. Hello Capricorn rising, welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Aquarius, happening on Wednesday, the 2nd of August at 4:33 a.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So for your full moon ritual, you can do it the Tuesday night, the Wednesday night, or you can get up extra specially early at 4:30 a.m. and feel the moon exactly full if you'd like to. Aquarius is your second house, Capricorn. This is where we come to think about our value system and our resources and how we develop those resources and what we do with them, what we're going to do with them. The sign Aquarius is very much involved with the greater benefit of others. So I imagine that in there, your relationship to your abundance, as it were, has a lot of there's a lot of help that you provide for other people using those resources. Your values are attached to the Aquarian philosophy of cooperative, collective wealth. At a full moon, we kind of express and launch. So if you are in a headspace where you've got enough and you're going to activate some kind of collective, cooperative initiative, then this would be the perfect time to do that. If you're in a space where you're working on it, then the full moon right now in Aquarius would be a great time to pat yourself on the back and to recognize the progress that you've made and also recognize your generosity. Now, I wanted to do a little bit of aftercare because I know that the Mars and Saturn opposition was a bit hairy. I know that there was a lot that showed itself to us, and there was potentially some grief that was attached to that face-off. There was a lot of bravery that we had to muster because of that. The aftercare is that the planet Mercury has just taken Mars's opposition to Saturn. So at 5 degrees of Pisces is Saturn, and at 5 degrees of Virgo is Mercury. Mars has moved on. Mars is at 13 degrees of Virgo now, and they've actually formed a really supportive trine with Jupiter in Taurus. So Jupiter is in your creative artistic studio right now, and they're speaking to Mars in your 9th house of philosophy and travel and mind expansion. So this is what I'm kind of seeing here for you at the moment, Capricorn. I feel the fire of Mars. I feel that sort of confrontation. I feel that it maybe have been a bit tricky. And I feel that Mercury is bringing with them some further information or some solutions perhaps to how to heal from some of that confrontation with Mars and with Saturn. If we really kind of zone in on your second house, if we zone in on the Aquarian possibilities of your chart, then what I see is that you're kind of moving into potentially a bit of bravery around your own creativity, your own voice, and there might be something, or there might be solutions, or there might be configurations in your life. You can see the problems and you can see how best to put your talents to good use at this time. There might be a campaign that you're working towards or that you're going to devote more time to and actively engage in this particular campaign because it's something that you believe in and it's something that you feel will benefit the kind of human collective, the human consciousness. We're moving towards something that sounds like progress, that sounds like something that perhaps is a bit of a revolution too. That's what Aquarius is really involved in, is this idea of like shaking things up, shaking up the status quo. So can your resources be put to that campaign? Can your resources be put to that progress? Is there something in this moment, after we felt that kind of real violence of Mars and Saturn in opposition, that sort of desperation, can you regroup and kind of reconsider your stake in the game? It'd be nice for you to kind of, I mean, you always do, Capricorn, but it would be nice for you to kind of maybe feel a bit more emboldened at this full moon, and feel that you don't have to sort of sit in silence and let it sort of, passively come over you. There might be something in here that kind of like galvanizes your intention, or galvanizes your perspective, your principle, your guiding principle in this evolution or this progress. Now, as I'm recording this, Pluto has just squared the dragon's head. So last fortnight we were talking about the nodes of the moon and the dragon's head moving into Aries. And so at 28 degrees of Aries, in your fourth house, your house of your home, your roots, your stability, your privacy, potentially your ancestry too, this is going to be the major focus over the next 18 months, and this is going to be where there'll be some real revolutions happening. Some kind of, like a power surge. But right now, this point in the sky is in exact square with retrograding Pluto in your first house of the soul. So you might be feeling that you might not have the stuff, or you might be feeling sort of trepidatious, or there's some fears that are sort of growing up inside of you. But I would be reluctant to allow that to be your only guiding motivation, the fear. I understand fear really quite clearly in my mind. I know what it feels like to be frightened. I also know what it feels like to be brave. And I know what it feels like to sort of stand up and state who I am against all opposition. And I feel that this is coming for you, Capricorn. I think that we've been dancing this dance with Pluto for some time now. We know that Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. And we know that the beginning degrees of the sign and the end degrees of the sign are quite juicy and quite potent. And we know that Pluto is quite destructive. But I see that this focus on your home, your privacy, your ancestry, this story that's about to unfold over the next 18 months is going to take some bravery. It's going to take you to stand up and to be in control, to take the lessons that Pluto's dug up, brought with them, to be grateful for them, as if you can, and then to move ahead with a bit of Aries vibe about you, with a bit of head first kind of self-direction. There'll be things that fall away in the way that the public perceives you, and that's good. Sometimes we can feel kind of beholden to our public position, or we can feel trapped by it. And we can kind of feel that the most palatable version of us is the only one worth really thinking about. But there's some private unearthing here. There's some ancestral healing that I really feel here. And that takes bravery. That takes a lot of bravery to face. I think if we zone back into Aquarius and your second house and your resources, your money, what you're going to do with it, I think that we're kind of moving towards a space in our culture and in our kind of history, our national history, if you're in the same country as me, where there is a lot of looking to the past that's occurring at the moment. There's a lot of weaponization of this potential progress too. It's a shame when the binary of politics gets in the way of evolution. I really think that that's such a shame that every issue that's brought to the public sphere or the town square these days, and probably it's always been that way, but I think as I'm getting older, I'm really realizing just the sort of thin veil of, it feels kind of pathetic to me that every issue would be so weaponized and kind of used against the other side. There's really sort of not really a great sense of humanity in the world of politics. It's really about winning. I think about private schools and the debate team. And while I think that healthy debate is really valid, and I think that every opinion can be, put on the table, when we're dealing with people's lives and people's dignity and people's right to reparation, when that's used as a weapon and when that's kind of used as a foil to win, it's really uninteresting and really pathetic. And it would be really nice to set down things like politics, the binary of politics, the bipartisan nature of that topic, It'd be great to set that down and to really kind of come into greater friendship with our humanity and then realize that the right decision will be made. The healthy discussion is to actually engage in the discussion, not to put it in the too hard basket or to put it to read it from a perspective of fear of loss. It's sort of like, well, what about me? I mean, that's kind of a lot of the topics that we're sort of talking about in the public sphere at the moment. That's the answer. That's the retaliation. What about me? I'm going to lose out on my. That's incredibly privileged and I think quite selfish. The moon is at 9 degrees in Aquarius, and the tarot card for that is the 5 of Swords. And so you can see here there is some sort of intellectual sparring match. There is truth weaponized. There is a kind of really heavy-handed conversation. And you can see that the two folks in the background have just dropped the chop. They've put tools down. They're like, we're out of here. We're not engaging in this fight. I don't see that as defeat, though, because I think the person in the foreground is not victorious. I think they're quite smug. And I don't think that this 5 is like the greater battle. I don't think that this is the end point. I think this is just a moment in the conversation where it's like, this is boring and I'm done with this. Wake up to yourself. We've got an opportunity here and you're wasting it. This is what this card sort of speaks to me about. So if your mind has been preoccupied with this kind of tete-a-tete, or this kind of really boring, really privileged debate. There's a lot of things at the moment that are put down to a debate. And I think folks should really recognize that the debate is people's identity, people's right to exist, people's dignity. There's a chance to make reparations for the damages of the past. We'd be idiots not to take it. I'm going to pull you some tarot, I think, Capricorn, because I can see here as well there might be sort of like, I feel the instability of the square with Pluto and with the node, the North Lunar node. There's vulnerability here. And there's complexity to unpick as well. You've been going through your own rebirth, your own resurrection. And so you can feel that. And then in an Aquarian way, if you can look out and witness other folks that are going through that similar kind of rebirth or that similar kind of journey to reparation, and that's where the empathy comes in. That's where there's sort of like, hopefully you can feel a bit stronger in yourself to be like, I know what that feels like. Boy, golly, I know what's right, and I know how I'm going to use my resources at this Aquarius full moon to great effect. I got the Sun, the Seven of Wands, and I got the Star, which is Aquarius. Look at that beautiful drawing of the star. I hope that that's in focus. This is a new tarot deck that was gifted to me very recently. The star has nothing to hide. The star has the ability to use a brilliant mind and to work with the water of life and love and to move that water for thirsty humanity. We need love right now, Capricorn, really, really badly. Folks need to work from a place of love after a long time of not. And so if this is your endpoint in your reading, this is the moon. This is the Aquarius full moon in a card. The star has nothing to hide. They've got everything to give. They know what to do. They know what's right. And they've got a sort of, what's the right word? Like, they're not solemn, but they're definitely calm and smooth in their movement. The Seven of Wands is a really sort of defensive kind of feeling. There's something about sort of guarding honor or protecting honor here. And there's a magic to this too, because it's the wands. And the Sun is the brightest part of you. The brightest part of you, Capricorn rising. So maybe think about your sun sign. If you know your chart very well, I'd make these readings for your rising sign because that makes the best sense of the house system. But the sun is our personality, our light. So have a look at your chart and see where your sun sign is. The easiest way to do that is to remember just your birthday and what zodiac sign the sun was in at the time of your birth. Your like trad horoscopes might be a good way to do that. So think about your sun sign. Think about the qualities of your sun sign in relationship to the qualities of your soul sign, your rising sign. And so how can we use this sort of pragmatic, practical, hard worker core of yours? What color and what shape is working in tandem with that Capricorn vibe? What does your sun do? How does your sun make use of this life? Go back to that, because your ego is not a dirty word. Your personality is really beautiful. And in the esoteric version of astrology, there is language around sort of like moving beyond the personality, which I respect, I really do, but everything in due course. And we can't translate the world around us without a personality, because then we'd just be a jellyfish. So look to your sun sign too. Your Capricorn's going to keep you centered, and your sun sign is going to bring the light, shed the light on this situation. Check out what house your sun is in too, because that will give you some further clues as to how to move forward and how to strategize. I love these cards. Oh, look at that, the star and the sun together. I hope you can see that. I have to check the tape. Beautiful. Light and shade, mask and femme. That's your reading, Capricorn. I love you lots. Oh, whoops. Drop my river rock. If you're still here with me, put a star in the comments, please. That would be very much appreciated. If you'd like me to read your birth chart, then here's an example. This is what they look like these days. I've sort of finessed my drawing style and incorporated the act of art making into my readings. I used to just scribble down notes and try and cram as much as I could, much info as I could into my head and remember. But the act of creating it, expressing my version of your chart, has really helped me to retain the information about the individual. So if you wanted your birth chart read, this is what you've got to look forward to. I use the tarot as well to incorporate the messages from the cards into the chart too. So head to umaruby.com if that sounds interesting to you. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, and I'll be with you in 2 weeks to talk all about the new moon in Leo. So until then, Capricorn, I love you lots. Take it easy. Bye. Hello, Taurus rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Aquarius, happening on August the 2nd at 4:33 a.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So you can either do your full moon ritual on the Tuesday night, you can do it on the Wednesday night too, but this moon will be exact at 4:33 a.m. on the Wednesday, the 2nd of August. So if you wanted to get up super early and feel the exactitude of the moon, then you can. You also don't have to. It will still work. Just take the moment to sort of contemplate and to have audience with the moon. Now, Aquarius rules your 10th house, Taurus. This is your most public and visible self. This has got a lot to do with your legacy and what you wish to leave behind. So a full moon here is like a spotlight into that area. It kind of feels like a beautiful crescendo after a great deal of hard work, and it feels really like celebratory, I might say. I want to do a little bit of aftercare because I think that if you recall the last horoscope, if you recall my discussions about Mars and Saturn being in opposition with each other in Pisces and in Virgo, from all reports and from my perception, that was a bit confronting. And so if we look at your birth chart, Taurus rising, this would mean that there was a friction between your 11th house, which is your house of friendship and belonging and community, and your 5th house of individual self-expression and creativity, your art making. And so Mars was in your art making world, and there could have been a blow up or a blowout, tension, anger, miscommunication, or something like that. I hope that it wasn't too severe. I hope that there wasn't a shock to the system that was too much to deal with. If it was confronting for you, I've got some good news, because Mercury, the planet that rules Virgo, that brings with it further information, has just taken Mars's place in that opposition. So now Mercury and Saturn are in opposition at this full moon. And so what we can do is we can recognize that Mercury is comfortable in Virgo, that there's sort of like a do-over that might happen here, and also there might be some chance to heal. So I'm not sure if you're in collaboration, a collaborative relationship with folks in your creative process, and if there was some tremors or there was something that sort of came out of the blue, or there was a fork in the road in some way. The heat of Mars, I keep on feeling it's sort of like a jolt. If that happened, then Mercury is going to be with us at this full moon on Wednesday, and is going to, I think, a couple of hours after this full moon actually, so 7 a.m. On the Wednesday the 2nd, there will be chance to kind of set aside some doubt maybe that might be rising around your artwork or around your creative expression. And all of this is to say that I want you to enjoy this full moon, the 10th. I want you to enjoy this full moon in your public facing house, your legacy, because you've done a lot of great hard work to get here. And I want you to bask in that glow. On the 2nd of August, and it might be almost like sort of capping off, or like marking a point in your career where you can receive it. You can receive the accolades, the applause. It's been a road that we've traveled down together in the time that I've been reading for you, Taurus rising, and I want for this to be like a marker point for you as we move forward and as we prepare ourselves in October for the final eclipse in Taurus, I want this moment to be a moment for you where you can be proud of yourself and you can, celebrate your artistry, celebrate your expression. I mean, Mars could also have been something, maybe it wasn't so aggressive, maybe it was more passionate, maybe there was something that really kind of knocked you for six in the intensity of the feeling of creation. There might have been a new idea that you had or a new wave of inspiration, and Mercury is now here at this moon to finesse that, to sort of get to the bottom of it, to sort of fine-tune the burst of inspiration that you felt initially. That might be a different way to read this as well. At 9 degrees of Aquarius, we have the Five of Swords. So this is the card that I've been working with and sort of, it's been colouring these readings. And so you can see here there's definitely been some kind of intellectual sparring match. There's been a fight. The swords in the tarot are thoughts and intellect and truth. And so I see that in this card, the swords have been weaponized and they've been used against one another. There's been some kind of difficulty here. And the folks in the background have decided to walk away from this. The one in the foreground is collecting the spoils of war, but in a bit of a smug way. I wouldn't be particularly proud of them. So if this is an internal thing, if this is going on in your mind, your brain, and you're sort of second-guessing your creativity, you're second-guessing your artistic output, if you've been told perhaps, someone's attempted to put you in your place, I'd walk away from it, because that was Mars and Saturn. That wasn't you. And yeah, there is no way that we're going to let your light be dimmed at this stage, Taurus. You've done such a beautiful job, as I said, to get here to this point in your development, in this point in your career. And there's so much more to explore. There's so much more to kind of build on and to grow. So I wouldn't be so concerned with whatever was going on in that Five of Swords. Allow it to happen. Also allow the aftercare too. I'm not sure if you were the one to sort of like bite out or lash out. Maybe that was something that happened. And it could have been to yourself. You could have been like, oh, you wasted your freaking life, you idiot. Grow up. That could have been, an internal battle. The swords, when we have too many of them to play with, they can really F us up. So if that was it, move through it. And then we can sort of allow Mercury to kind of finesse what was going on in there. I'm going to get you some intuitive tarot, I think, Taurus. I've got this beautiful, beautiful new deck that was gifted to me last week. It was actually gifted to me right around the time of this Mars and Saturn opposition. I think it was like the day of or the day after, actually. And I'm incredibly grateful for it. It's very beautiful. It's got a beautiful sound. And the images are just stunning. So we'll see what we can draw for you, Taurus, from this very special deck. One other thing worth mentioning as I pull these cards is that Mars is still in Virgo, but they've moved on and they're at 13 degrees of Virgo now. And they're forming a trine, a very supportive relationship with Jupiter, who is at 13 degrees of Taurus. So this is something that we can really sort of feel out. Okay, Taurus? This is something that the creative parts of you, the artistic parts of you, the parts that have you express yourself, the passion that is there, or that sort of fire of Mars, is now in support with Jupiter, who expands and grows in your first house of the soul center. So let Mercury do its work. Let Mercury work on this face-off, maybe doubts, maybe still a little bit of aftercare in that conflict with your 11th house of community and friendship and group work. And know that Mars is now in really great support with Jupiter in Taurus. So this is all happening on this moon. It's sort of like dominoes. The moon's at 4:30. Mars is trining Jupiter at 7 a.m. And then by lunchtime, Mercury will have arrived to pass out that, to do the aftercare of that tension. So I got the Eight of Swords. I got Death. And I got the Queen of Pentacles. Fuck, I love tarot. And I love how, I've been really alert and tuned in lately. I've been really, the messages are quite literal through these cards and through the astrology. And I feel really prepared and ready. And I love that these cards have just reiterated my story that I was telling you then. The Eight of Swords is an anxious card. It does speak about feeling trapped in the mind or feeling caged in by circumstance or by our mentality, how we've been thinking about ourselves or thinking about a certain situation. The thing to remember in the Eight of Swords is that we do have access to getting out of that, and that we're not trapped, we're not caged in. In fact, if we find our way through, find our way clear, we can cut off our shackles and we can remove our blindfold and we can move forward. When the swords stack up, as I said, when we're left alone, as in this card, with 8 swords rather than 5, that's an anxious cage. And so Death has shown up here to birth you again, to have you recognize that instance, that circumstance, argument, whatever it was, is in the past. We're going to sort of really harness our Scorpio sensibilities. This is your 7th house of relationships, so this is interesting. But we're going to allow the dead to die, and we're going to feel the intensity of those emotions, and we're going to get the anxiousness out and move it through, because we're going to come back to the Queen of Pentacles. We're going to come back to this beautiful space of care and love, and we're going to feel that we do have enough. The Queen of Pentacles is a lovely card for a Taurus because it is about the tangible reality, the kind of the garden, a place where we can feel that we have so much and we've got more than enough to share around. It's a real space of accomplishment as well. So I wonder, I'm kind of really feeling that perhaps there was something in the way that you've been relating, or the way that folks were relating to you, or what they said, that perhaps was echoing this friction between Mars and Saturn, but perhaps it has galvanized you and galvanized your creative potential, your creative intention, and you're going to be able to grow from this, and you're going to be able to create from this, because this work that you've been doing, especially in Scorpio, especially in your 7th house of your relationships, and you've been feeling the shedding, you've been feeling what's needed to be put down and what's needed to be sort of let go of in the way that you used to relate to people, or there's been some relationships that have been very difficult to say goodbye to over these last 18 months. That's something that I'm really kind of meditating on right now too. The Queen of Pentacles protects us and cares for us and nurtures us. And she's a hard one to say goodbye to. We get to say hello again when we recognize that she lives on inside of us as well. And this energy of having enough, of providing dinner, of providing a nice, clean, warm bed, fresh sheets, pop the fire on. It's all capable. You're capable of this. You're capable to provide yourself with this right now, Taurus, as well. And as we kind of settle into this new phase of your creativity, as we hopefully feel a bit of that inspiration again coming back. I hope that with that, you can feel that sense of safety enough to really go there and really kind of let the juices flow. Really, I find it very difficult sometimes to create when I'm so tense about the bottom line, or I'm tense about where the next, reading is coming in and all of that kind of thing. When I get sort of caged about or worried about the future, I find it's really difficult to let the creative juices flow, even though you've got time to do so. That's such a double-edged sword, and it's kind of really unfair, but it's a lesson that we all have to work through and work with whenever it shows up, is that this internal sense of the Queen of Pentacles. There's a rabbit. This is a beautiful card. There's a rabbit. Yeah. You can get that warmth and those hugs coming from inside of you. Maybe get yourself, you don't have to get anything. It's always about, you don't have to get, If the feeling arises, the anxiety of the Eight of Swords rises, where you're feeling that you're not going to be able to provide, get out your Queen of Pentacles, put her under your pillow, and have a chat, because she'll make you feel safe again. That's your reading, Taurus. These beautiful cards. If you're still here with me, please drop me a star in the comments in honor of the Aquarius full moon. I'd love a star. And if you'd like your birth chart read by me, here's an example of what they look like these days. I've been working on my own creative self-expression, and probably for the past 6 months at least, I think, maybe a bit longer, I have been drawing out my charts for my readings to get the essence of your astrology into my body with my pen. And once I've drawn it out, then I can probably talk about it all day long. I use the tarot in my readings too. It's a nice mix of the two different forms of conversation. So if you've been thinking about it for a while and you haven't booked in, head to umaruby.com and I'll draw you up one of these. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, and I'll be with you in 2 weeks and we'll talk about the new moon in Leo. And this will be nice for you, Taurus, because this will be a great moment of manifestation in your home environment, the private parts of you. We've been releasing and feeling the love publicly. Now it's time to come back to the garden and to make some wishes for the future, to plant some seeds. So I'll speak to you then. Big love, Taurus. I'm proud of you. Take care. Hello Virgo rising, welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Aquarius, happening on the 2nd of August on Wednesday at 4:33 a.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So if you wanted to do your full moon spell work, you can do it on Tuesday night or Wednesday night, unless of course you wanted to get up super early and see the moon exact at 4:30 a.m. That's for southern hemisphere people. This one is going to be great to get stuck out of the grind. I kind of really feel that I want you to kind of take the vibrancy of this full moon, Virgo, and to sort of shed a little bit in the repetition that you've found yourself in. The 6th house, which is where Aquarius rules for you, is about rolling through the day of getting up, brushing the teeth, going to work, responsibilities, doing this, that, the other. It also has a lot to do with your health, and sometimes when there's a rut, that's when the body can start to suffer, and that's when the irritability starts to arise, and then the kind of feeling of disembodiment can occur. So at a full moon, that does really move our emotions and talks a lot to our body. We get to kind of work with that feeling and shed a little bit. The 6th does have a lot to do with repetition. I think that's probably a really good word for it for you to remember, Virgo. Repetition, maybe responsibility too. What I really feel is that there's been some tension rising, and there's probably a bit of aftercare that we can discuss and talk about if there have been some blow-ups in your relationships. Remember at the last horoscope I talked about Mars and Saturn being in opposition. So Mars is in Virgo and Saturn is in Pisces, in your seventh house of your intimate relationships. This can be your lovers. This can also be folks that you work very closely with. Pretty much anyone that you see on the regular every day, that means something to you. You can find in your seventh house. It's the other side of the mirror. And people can mirror all sorts of things in us, can't they? They can, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What I feel is that, and what from experience and kind of, chatting to my friends and family and looking out into the world, that Mars and Saturn opposition was a tough one, and it did bring some tension, and there was kind of like almost like a tower moment for some, in the tower sort of knocks something down that's on shaky foundations, something like that. And so what I want to do with this aftercare is kind of describe to you that hopefully will ease over the coming weeks, that opposition tension. Good news is that Mars has moved on to about 13 degrees of Virgo now and is in trine with Taurus, with Jupiter in Taurus. So we'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing is that the planet Mercury has taken the opposition from Mars to Saturn. So Mercury is the planet that brings with it further information, further analysis. And Mercury is also the planet that rules your sign, that's really, really at home in Virgo. So if you can have a think about that sort of conflict, that passion, that trauma, and then now we're moving into a space where we can sort of recollect and we can reflect on what happened, and hopefully we can make reparations if we need to. Where Mars is now at 13 degrees, there's still passion in your first house. There's still that sort of fire and charge that Mars brings with it. But right now they're refocused and they're actually in really supportive relationship, an exact trine with Jupiter in your ninth house, which is your sort of house of mind expansion and philosophy and travel and moving outwards. In Hellenistic astrology, it's called the house of the god. So it's sort of, quite vast and broad. So if it's a matter of you needing to refocus, maybe if this sort of the mundanity, what's that song? The Mundanity of Evil. It's a really good one. Yeah, it's like the mundane can drive us nuts, and it can really rip us apart too. And sometimes if we feel that we're sort of held in place or stuck in a certain groove that we feel kind of powerless to get out of as well, when Mars is sort of looking at that, that can be tough. But we can move through. And as I said in the last horoscope, if we kind of do all that we can not to kick back from our relationships, or if it's kind of hard to describe though, Virgo, because it could have happened that you were like insulted too. There could have been something that happened in your seventh house that sort of was shot back at you and that made your blood boil. So if that's the case, this is where Mercury comes into play right now at this full moon. The idea that the sun is in your 12th house of your hidden world, your unconscious world, along with Venus. So there's something really beautiful about your inner work, your private work. But it is sort of that light of the sun is highlighting, putting a spotlight on the mundanity of your sixth house. So hopefully we can course correct and divert our attention away from that conflict of Mars and Saturn. Now it's up to Taurus in the ninth house. Yeah. You just want to freaking like run sometimes. I know that feeling really well, Virgo, when you just sort of want to drop everything and just bolt. Be like, this, you're fucked, you're fucked, you're fucked, you're all fucked, like, let's get out of here. Tempting to do. Not recommended. Absolutely very tempting to do. So this is where learning about your astrology can really help. And this is where developing, a greater friendship with tarot cards can really help, because from that pressure cooker, or that sort of, the red mist of Mars, that's actually probably a really nice relationship that we can align with Mars. Have you heard of that phrase, the red mist? That sort of irritability, that sort of anger that can sort of come up when people feel that they're trapped. Mars can stir that shit up sometimes. So for them to be in your first house of your center, your soul's purpose, remember, I'm reading to a Virgo rising, so this is your soul's rising intention. Okay? This is your first house of the self and the purpose. And we've just had all of this conflict with your seventh house of the other. And now the moon's full in the mundane. So if you're pulling out your hair, let's get some tarot cards and let's see what I can add to this right now. There is a card that I'm looking at right now that I'll show you just as I pull these ones out. But, these are new cards actually, so they might be a bit slippery. I'll get you 3 and then we'll talk about it. But I wanted to, before I read from them, the 5 of Swords is the card that we're working with this moon, which is probably why a lot of this frustration might be sort of brewing. This is a sparring match. There's 3 folks here and they're all using their swords, their truth, their ideas as weapons. And they've had a huge go at it, but there's 2 folks in the background that are like, you know what, F this, I'm out of here. I'm done. I don't need to engage in this anymore. And the one in the foreground is sort of collecting everything, but they're not really victorious. They're a bit sort of smug, I would say. It's a bit embarrassing. So I look at this card and I look at what we've just been through with Mars and Saturn in opposition, now with Mercury sort of coming in with a big glass of water and being like, okay, well, look, I'll hear from your perspective, I'll hear from your perspective, I'll hear from your perspective. Right, there's things that you didn't know is maybe what might be coming up around this full moon for you, Virgo. And sometimes when there's things that we didn't know, that can kind of help us to come to terms with whatever it is that's given us the shits. The cards that I have are the 4 of Pentacles, the Magician, and the Lovers. So the 4 of Pentacles is Capricorn vibes. It is definitely about sort of clamping down and sort of like battening down the hatches and going the distance. It's also maybe there's something a little less generous about this card too, sort of holding on to your shekels, holding on to your possessions, or kind of keeping things to yourself. But also what I really feel the body position of the person in the 4 of Pentacles. They're really kind of locked into like a stubborn sort of position. They're like, yep, no. If you ask the 4 of Pentacles if they're okay, they'll be like, yep. If you ask the 4 of Pentacles, do you need anything? They'll say, no. That's the kind of feeling with the 4 of Pentacles. You've got the Magician and you've got the Lovers. So the Magician is like really charming, and there's something really kind of mysterious about this person. They're the first person that the Fool meets at the very beginning of their trip around the wheel. And sometimes there can be a bit of deception that's attached to this. Sometimes it doesn't take very much to sort of like scratch off the paint job of the Magician, or see the strings, or see that the rabbit that was being pulled out of a hat is like stuffed. Like there's a bit of like a shyster sort of feeling maybe about the Magician. Sometimes it can represent someone who's really in tune with the mysteries of the universe. but it is egoic. There's something, I always think about the magician in kind of contrast to the high priestess, who is the most magical, but who doesn't say anything, is not doing it for any purpose other than like the purpose of the universe. Whereas the magician is, a bit of a show off. Then we got the Lovers, which is a mirror. There's always three kind of figures in the Lovers card. There's definitely the two folks that are in relationship, and I would consider them, if we think about them in terms of like Gemini, they are the mirror to one another. And the angel in this card is the light and the love. So it's kind of like a continual sort of shape and a continual negotiation and a continual like conversation with the angel, with the love, with the light. That's why folks sometimes say that there's a choice to be made in the Lovers card, is because it's a continual choice to show up in relationship. It's a continual choice to do the work and to make the commitment. And so what I kind of feel here is I definitely feel the closed off vibe of the Four of Pentacles. I feel don't want to talk about it. That's definitely really full on. I feel the kind of deception, or like the perceived deception, sort of like, well, you didn't tell me that it would be like this. Like you were a bit of a big talker, and have you been lying to me? Because I'm rapidly getting to the bottom of that. And this could just be a moment as well, Virgo. That isn't to say that anything is going to be sort of destroyed. But if this is something that you have been feeling, if this has been like a growing sort of feeling too, where it has got you to a point where you're like, actually, I'm not even interested in like finding the joy in this. I've given you so much. I've been so available to you and honest with you, and you are a bullshit artist. You are just a liar, and you are a big talker, and this has not worked out, and I'm continually showing up and continually like mirroring your behavior back to you. Sometimes this relationship, the Lovers, of course, we all know that. Every single person that's been in a relationship with another human being knows that it's not all smooth sailing, but some folks can take the reflection, they can look in the mirror and say, okay, my behavior is being mirrored back to me right now. Okay, here's my moment of relinquishment of control. I can see this. I can see what's going on, and I respect that. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for mirroring this back to me. Other people are like, no, smoke bomb, no, you're not buying what I'm selling? Fine, I'll move on to someone else and I'll try and sell it to them. I feel bad about being so hard-nosed on the Magician, because I like them, but not in this scenario. You need some support, Virgo. And this is quite a sexy version of the Four of Pentacles. Oh, that's nice. Very different mood to what I was describing, actually. Yeah. There's still that confidence and that self-assuredness, but maybe less to do with the kind of feeling, and more to do with the like, that's fine. Yeah, sure. It feels like the veil has been lifted, Virgo, and I would probably like support you in your observation. And as much as it is frustrating to continually have some character try and take advantage of you, or try and, pull the wool over your eyes, be the magician, it feels to me that you've got their number. You know what they're on about. And perhaps you're going to sort of, perhaps there's perhaps you're holding your mirror somewhere else. Perhaps they're not entitled to the intimacy of this relationship any longer for this time until they take a good hard look at themselves. In closing, Virgo, let's shed in the 6th. Let's really put the spotlight on your daily rhythm, your daily grind. Look at it for what it is and look what sacrifices you've been making too in order to maintain that, and then reconsider if that's what you need to do. Maybe Jupiter in your 9th house, which is much more sort of exciting, can be providing Mars with a bit of support now. Mars is in your 1st house for a purpose, and there is passion there. So work with that, I reckon. If you'd like me to read your birth chart, here's an example. This is an example of the drawings that I make for my birth chart readings. I use tarot and I use your astrology in tandem. So yeah, if you'd like one of these lovely drawings made for you, then do head over to umaruby.com and book yourself a place with me. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, and I'll be with you in 2 weeks and we'll talk about the new moon in Leo, which will be an incredible time for you to delve into the more hidden parts of your nature and maybe, do some deep inner work. That'll be lovely and probably well needed after all of this mess. Anyway, I love you, Virgo, and I'll chat to you in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye.